Hey kitties, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we look at some people that just take Halloween a little too seriously. Happy Halloween, everybody. That sacred day is back again, and that means there are no more horror movies for a little while, which is a bummer because I sort of gorge on them in October, which I just consider as a month-long 31-day Halloween. I'm up to, as of the recording of this, I'm up to something like 40 horror movies that I've watched just in this month. I've really just been watching horror movies this whole time and, interspacing it with Archer as a palate cleanser. And though we can watch horror movies anytime that we want, it's just, they just hit a little bit better in October. Well, and that's part of why I love it so much. You can't turn on the television without finding a horror movie. It's great. It's like the whole world shares my point of view for a month. That kind of reminds me of the people in this triple feature where, as much as I enjoy Halloween, these people live for Halloween. And if you run into them and you don't live for Halloween too, you could be in serious trouble. And by serious trouble, I mean graphically murdered in gruesome detail. Because I think they know that they're in a horror movie too, so it's even worse. It's like they take the holiday too seriously, and they know when they're in a horror movie, so they're just gonna murder the shit out of you, and it's really a bummer. For you. For me, the viewing audience, just so satisfying. Because, man, nothing cheers you up better than watching people suffer simulated tortures of the damned. So, our menu is going to include Night of the Demons, House of 1,000 Corpses, and Trick or Treat. Kevin Tenney's Night of the Demons is just a gas. It's one of those you either know about it or you don't. It's just, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's an also-ran, because among the people that know it, it's very, very popular, because the movie is quite charming, but it just never really caught on like your Return of the Living Deads, your Evil Deads, Nightmare on Elm Street, all the other supernatural horror movies of the late 80s. But it's not for lack of charm. The whole thing opens up with a really adorable animated Halloween credit sequence that sort of looks like a two-dimensional version of A Nightmare Before Christmas. And then we get our normal setup with a bunch of teenagers going to party on Halloween and drink and probably have sex and do horrible things to each other. But legal, consensual things to each other. Unfortunately, hardcore goth kid Angela has decided that she wants to have her spooky wookie party at Hell House, the local abandoned and probably haunted mortuary. Because if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And she and a broad cross section of high school friends go to Hell House to party. And when the music unfortunately dies, Angela decides, you know what we need to do? We need to do a seance in the purportedly haunted house that either way was the site of, the embalming and cremation of thousands of dead bodies. So, there can't be anything going wrong there. Of course, the seance goes wrong and a demon gets invoked and or accidentally escapes. It's kind of fuzzy. But the demon is out, the demon is possessing everybody, and the demon is making everybody these undead, mutilated demon monster things that are going around running after everybody and torturing them. And the movie just has no shortage of crazy ideas in terms of visuals. We have, just the general makeup effects throughout the whole thing. But you also get weird stuff like Linnea Quigley shoving a lipstick into her boob for reasons. Linnea Quigley, Scream Queen of Return of the Living Dead, I'm not wearing any clothes for this movie fame, also met her husband, a special makeup effects artist named Steve Johnson. Lighting is good and moody. There's a lot of great shots that are lit by a fireplace that look gorgeous, especially when Angela, possessed by the demon, starts doing her big dance number. There's a big dance number. This movie is so random at times, but always entertaining. You get wonderful turns of phrase that if the movie had been more popular would have caught on, like eat a bowl of fuck. I try to work that into my normal parlance, but I always forget about it, despite it being just, eat a bowl of fuck. It's just so great. And then for my usual purposes of wanting to watch the people survive and, crush the demons, the people that end up being our big heroes at the end are the least likely at the beginning of the film, and they earn it the whole time. Our main hero turns out to be Judy, who's dressed like Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and she keeps coming up with these ways to escape the demons and fight back that get like progressively more badass. And then this thing they have to do to get out of the house, because I mean, like the house is one thing, but then the whole house is bricked around completely by this like 30-foot tall wall that they can't get over unless they climb up barbed wire, which they do, and it's amazing. And all throughout it, people are just getting killed and then reanimated as these demons over and over and over again. And what's fun is that they're not they're a lot more along the lines of like the Evil Dead type characters, where they're not exactly mindless. They do retain some memories and personality traits from when they were alive, and they just which makes the whole thing much more warped and freaky to see. And also, the ending is especially good for kids that grew up in the '80s whose parents maybe were too afraid of Halloween candy at the end, and it's good revenge for people that were trying to spoil it for the rest of us. So fuck that guy. Next up, we have Rob Zombie's directorial debut, House of a Thousand Corpses. And there seem to be two different camps as to Rob Zombie. There are people that like his films and the people that don't. I am definitely in the likes his films camp, starting with this one, which, despite The Devil's Rejects, the sequel, being the clearly better movie, I prefer House to this because, man, anything can and will happen in the House of a Thousand Corpses, which just makes it endlessly entertaining for weirdos like me. Whereas Angela was, a teenage goth kid who went all out for Halloween. God, you get the sense the Fireflies are just living Halloween, and then Halloween is just an excuse to be that much more revolting to the world at large. They are, a much more photogenic version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family. Definitely when it comes to Baby Firefly, played by Rob Zombie's wife, Sherry Moon, who is really just something in this movie. And she's joined by Otis Driftwood, played by Bill Moseley, and Karen Black, playing Mama Firefly, and then a few other people in the family. And they capture hapless hitchhikers and or teenagers whose cars break down and then torture the shit out of them. Or sometimes I think they just hunt people down because they have like this whole bevy of cheerleaders that they're just working on throughout the whole movie. It's kind of like a background thing, but it's really horrifying. And then you have Captain Spaulding, who in this movie we're not exactly sure what his connection to any of this is, other than he lives his life as a clown. And if you live your life as a clown, you're sort of doing Halloween all year round anyway. And as a lot of people find clowns scary, you'll probably find this movie just terrifying right off the bat, because the whole opening is just the clown foiling an attempted burglary with great panache. Captain Spaulding's played by Sid Haig, and Sid Haig is just amazing in this movie. It's sort of like relaunched his whole career. Same with Bill Moseley. They've got like added life. And I mean, granted, it's predominantly horror movies, but they're in a lot more horror movies than they were before. And so when they captured the teenagers, while they're still pretending to be the teenagers' friends, they're trying to explain to them how much they enjoy Halloween, and how, the night before Halloween they're doing all these great little stage shows and big dinners and everything, and excited. And then when the teenagers completely shit all over it, I mean, you don't get the sense that they were going to let the teenagers go, but maybe if they had gone along with it just a little bit more. There's perpetually, like, everybody is perpetually wearing costumes, whether it's like oversized heads or different outfits, or sometimes the flesh of their victims. You do get a sense they love the pageantry and the spookiness of it. And then when it all culminates in like this big kind of pseudo Aleister Crowley ritual that leads to the subterranean lair of Dr. Satan, which might be the titular House of a Thousand Corpses, it just goes completely off the rail. And in terms of directorial debuts, I've seen worse. I mean, it definitely has that first this is my first movie, so it's going to be kind of arty and experimental, but it still tells a coherent story. It tells it with a very interesting visual style, so I would highly recommend this. I would also recommend never going to Texas, or, hitchhiking, or basically any of the behaviors done by anybody in the film, unless it's about, getting alcohol for Halloween, because I agree with Baby. It's fun to get fucked up and do fucked up things. And then there's Michael Dougherty's Trick or Treat. The long-awaited. This thing came out in 2007, but I think it was actually filmed in 2005. But for reasons, the studio didn't think it was going to make any money, so it like got screened a couple of times, and then it was like this thing you heard about. But then it finally came out, and it lived up to all the hype for me. I just love it. And little Sam, the little trick or treat boy, who takes Halloween way more seriously than you or I or even the Fireflies do. Because he is the personification of Halloween. And if you don't like Halloween, he is going to mess you up if you're not enjoying Halloween or abiding by Halloween rules on Halloween. Could I say Halloween anymore in this video? I don't know. Trick or Treat is, so I always describe it as the Pulp Fiction of horror movies, which is not to say I think it is of the same quality as Pulp Fiction, because only Pulp Fiction is Pulp Fiction. But it does have a very non-linear structure and characters and plots interacting with each other and popping up throughout the whole film. Especially the first characters we see, Henry and Emma, which, you know, for you Wizard of Oz fans, is a reference to Uncle Henry and Auntie Em popping up throughout the whole film. Because it's one of those, the movie starts at chronologically the last thing that happens in the night, but we get to see Henry and Emma popping up in the background of just about all of the sequences, which is a gas. And this movie seemingly has everything. Supernatural creatures, vampires, werewolves, serial killers, rotten children, horrifying teenagers, bored suburban people, real scum of the earth types popping in and out throughout the whole thing. And I just never get enough of it. Or it's like predominantly Canadian television cast. I mean, Dylan Baker's in here, Leslie Bibb. Brian Cox, of course, is a English actor, but, you know, he does so much TV, he might as well be Canadian at this point. Anna Paquin playing against her True Blood type, which is always a good time. Tamo Pennicott, Britt McKillop. Just, if you've watched any sort of genre television in the last 15 years, you will recognize half of the cast of the movie, which makes it a lot of fun. Tonally, I won't go as far as to say it's all over the place, but each segment has its own vibe. The principal sequence is much more of a black comedy. The opening with Henry and Emma is much more suspenseful. The bit with the kids with the jack-o'-lanterns trying to torture the developmentally different child, Rhonda, that one is much spookier than anything else. The bits with Anna Paquin are sort of a weird, sort of an inverse of a slasher type coming of age film, and then the stuff with Brian Cox towards the end is just all out monster movie mayhem. And it's all in a nice little less than 2-hour package that, you know, if you have the good fortune to see, you should, because it's not one of the rules that Sam's going to enforce, but I bet you if you ask Sam, is he going to kill you if you don't watch the movie? He's probably going to kill you if you don't watch the movie, so you better be safe than sorry. And I hope everybody's safe tonight on their Halloween. Halloween should be fun, but nobody should get hurt. Behave responsibly. Engage in excesses only to the level with which you feel comfortable. And I'll see you guys next week for a triple feature that I promise will not be horror movies. Unless I just decide to do more horror movies because I really love them. I'm sorry, I do. I love horror movies. But anyway, you should watch all 3 of these horror movies for Halloween. If you're not outside on Halloween, you should watch House of a Thousand Corpses, Trick or Treat, or Night of the Demons, and you'll have a great time. See you later.